The dust in the Permian Basin isn't just dirt, it's the pulverized remains of an ancient, prehistoric sea crushed over eons into a fine, choking powder that finds its way into your lungs, your gear, and your very soul. Every time you step out of your truck, you are inhaling the ghosts of things that lived before the continents had names. I've been hauling high-pressure gate valves, diamond-tipped drill bits, and specialized synthetic lubricants across these caliche roads for over 20 years. I'm a senior sales engineer for industrial supplies, the guy the majors call when a rig in the middle of nowhere snaps a stabilizer and is losing $100,000 an hour in non-productive time. Yesterday, the regional director sat me down in that glass-walled office in Midland. The air conditioning was humming at a crisp 68 degrees, a stark contrast to the 104-degree heat shimmer rising off the asphalt outside. He didn't talk about quarterly quotas, and he didn't ask about the new line of polycrystalline diamond compact bits. He looked me dead in the eye, slid a black encrypted tablet across the mahogany desk, and said, "The new sales engineer is taking the south sector. I need you to get him up to speed, not on the sales pitch, but on the documentation." 12 years ago, the director was pulled into a meeting at an unmarked building near the Midland International Air and Spaceport. He met with a group of people from a government agency no one has ever heard of, the Federal Bureau of Lithospheric Integrity, or the FBLI. They didn't come in with badges and suits. They came in with tactical physicists and subsurface mappers. They explained that the Permian Basin isn't just an oil field, it's a localized electromagnetic thin spot. As we've drilled deeper into the Precambrian basement rock, we haven't just been extracting hydrocarbons, we've been puncturing a veil that has been sealed for millions of years. The FBLI provided us with specialized hardware tokens, encryption keys that look like standard USB drives, but contain a rotating 512-bit cipher that syncs with their orbital satellites. I've had mine for over a decade. It never leaves my keychain. Over the last 2 years, the paranormal activity in the south sector hasn't just increased, it has become a daily operational reality. The Office of Subsurface Coordination now monitors our Code 9 ledger more closely than our actual sales revenue. Since I've survived the last 24 months of this heightened state, it's my job to ensure you know how to observe these events and how to report them through the FBLI encrypted channels. Plus, the FBLI keeps us funded more than our largest drilling customer, which means they have deep pockets. The funny thing is, I'm not sure if we're the only supply company that's part of this observation and documentation project. When we get together with our competitors at trade shows, no one has ever mentioned, and we know how much these oil company execs like to flex. Anyway, let's get on with it. First observation, the phantom lease of Mentone. It was late August, during that specific window of West Texas heat where the horizon doesn't just shimmer, it ripples like a disturbed pond. I was hauling a rush order of 12.2 5-inch PDC bits toward a Chevron site near Mentone. These bits are state-of-the-art, designed with thermally stable cutters to withstand the friction of the deep Wolfcamp Formation. The sun had just dipped below the flat edge of the world, leaving a bruised purple sky that felt heavy and suffocating. About 20 miles outside of town, my GPS began to stutter. It didn't lose signal. Instead, it began displaying coordinates that looped back on themselves in a non-Euclidean pattern, creating a geometric impossibility on the screen. The compass on the dash didn't just spin, it settled on a new north that pointed directly toward a patch of empty scrub. I rounded a sharp bend in the caliche road, a road that should have been empty, and observed a rig. It was a massive, triple derrick setup, standing nearly 190 feet tall, lit up with enough industrial floodlights to be seen from low Earth orbit. The first thing I noted was the acoustic anomaly: absolute silence. Rigs are inherently violent, rhythmic places. They have a heartbeat, the hiss of hydraulics, the 1,200 horsepower thrum of the Caterpillar generators, the clanging of the iron roughneck. This place was silent. The floodlights were blindingly bright, yet they possessed a zero shadow quality. My truck's high beams seemed to be absorbed by the glare rather than cutting through it. I stepped out of the cab to check the air quality, and the atmosphere smelled of wet copper and high voltage ozone, a metallic tang that made my teeth ache. I observed figures on the rig floor, roughnecks in clean tan coveralls with no company logos. They were moving in perfect synchronized loops, like a film reel stuck on a 3-second repeat. A man walked toward my truck from the tool pusher's shack. As he entered the primary wash of my headlights, I observed the primary anomaly. He had no face. Where eyes, nose, and a mouth should have been, there was only a smooth, pale expanse of skin reflecting the light like polished bone. He didn't speak. He didn't have the hardware for it. But as he stood there, I felt a localized pressure building in my skull, a grinding sensation like sand being forced into a gearbox. If you observe a rig that isn't on your digital map, do not exit the vehicle, do not put the truck in park, keep the engine turning to maintain a kinetic buffer. Rigs that appear in the middle of a dead zone are usually temporal echoes of operations that never officially happened in our timeline. Observe the floodlights. If the personnel do not cast shadows on the caliche, they are not recognized by the Department of Labor or the laws of physics. Immediately log into the company portal using your level 4 encrypted hardware key. Under the Inventory Discrepancy drop-down menu, select Type A Spatial Variance. In the Site Conditions box, you must be precise. Record the number of derricks, the estimated height, and the approximate lumen count of the floodlights. Do not, under any circumstances, describe the facial features or the repetitive movements in the text box. Use the standardized FBLI phrase, observed unmapped asset with zero shadow luminosity at coordinates redacted. This triggers an automatic geofence purge. The main office will remotely wipe your GPS logs and credit your account with a safety retention bonus. Second observation, the flare stack specter of Highway 285. Highway 285 is a high traffic corridor, a graveyard for overworked truckers and blown out tires. But last winter, the observation I made was stationary and thermal in nature. I was driving south toward Pecos through a thick, unnatural fog that had rolled in despite a 0% humidity forecast. The fog smelled of sulfur and burnt hair, a scent that stuck to the back of my throat. To my left, a line of flare stacks marked the horizon, burning off excess methane. I observed one stack that was malfunctioning. Instead of the usual 1,200 degree orange-yellow flame, it was kicking out a deep pulsating violet light. The flame didn't flicker with the wind, it pulsed with a slow organic rhythm like a lung expanding and contracting. In the center of that violet roar, standing directly in the path of the fire, was a human-shaped figure. She wore a vintage 1970s denim jacket with a company patch, Western Drilling and Exploration, a firm that was dissolved in the 1980s. She stood perfectly still as the fire licked around her. I slowed the truck to 15 miles per hour to observe. She turned around slowly. Her skin was translucent, glowing with the same violet hue as the gas fire. Her eyes were not eyes. They were pits of flickering purple light. The moment she established visual contact with the truck, my radio, which was powered off, flared to life. It began emitting a high-pitched 18 kilohertz harmonic frequency that shattered my passenger side mirror and cracked the windshield. I then observed a harmonic displacement inside the cab. The passenger side of the truck dipped significantly, the leaf springs groaning under a sudden invisible load. Something invisible, possessing considerable mass and a temperature of roughly 40 degrees Fahrenheit, had entered the cab. The seat cushion depressed under the weight of an unseen occupant. The smell of ozone became overwhelming, and frost began to form on the dashboard despite the heater being on full blast. If you observe a violet flame, do not stop to investigate. These are harmonic vents where the barrier between the current basin and the old basin is thin. If your radio starts playing frequencies that shatter glass, your cab has gained an occupant. Do not interact with the empty seat. Do not look at it in the rear view mirror. Recite the company's safety mission statement out loud to keep your neural pathways grounded in mundane reality. The director requires a Code 99 harmonic occupancy report through the FBLI secured link. You must provide the exact mile marker and the duration of the cold spot in the cabin. In the equipment damage section, list the broken mirror as atmospheric pressure event. Under passenger and co-driver, check the box for none, but in the notes write violet spectrum interference noted at mile marker 42. The office will immediately schedule you for a degaussing session at the private clinic in Midland. The FBLI uses this to strip the static of that entity off your nervous system so it doesn't follow you back to your home. Third observation, the grinding in the pipe rack. I was dropping off a load of 4-inch seamless casing at a remote supply yard near Midkiff. This casing is high-strength carbon steel, grade P 110, built to withstand the extreme downhole pressures of the Permian. It was 2 a.m. and the yard was a labyrinth of stacked steel towering 20 feet high in long dark rows. The overhead sodium vapor lights were flickering, dying out one by one as if something were siphoning the voltage from the grid. As I operated the truck's crane to lower the first bundle of steel, I heard a metallic clack, clack, clack coming from the center of the racks. It sounded like someone was hitting the hollow steel pipes with a 5-pound sledgehammer. I grabbed my 1,000 lumen maglite and walked toward the sound, assuming it was a copper thief. I shone the light down the throat of a 40-foot joint of casing. 2 eyes stared back. They were enormous, pale, and lacked pupils like the eyes of a blind cave fish. The head was too wide for the pipe's diameter, yet it was fitting inside, its skin scraping against the rusted steel with a sound like sandpaper on a drum. The clacking wasn't a hammer, The creature was snapping its jaws against the steel, the sound amplifying through the hollow pipe like a megaphone. Then the auditory mimicry began. A voice came through the pipe. It was a perfect, digital quality mimic of my own voice, but layered with the sound of grinding rusted gears. It recited my full legal name, my social security number, and the address of the house I grew up in. By the time I reached the gate, I observed that every single pipe in that yard, thousands of tons of carbon steel, had been bent into perfect, upright spirals, as if the metal had become organic. If you hear your own voice coming out of hollow inventory, the observation is complete. Do not attempt to retrieve your equipment or save the load. The inventory is considered biologically compromised. These echoes engage in mimicry to fixate on a biological target. They aren't ghosts. They are a subterranean life form that communicates through seismic resonance. File an environmental hazard. Auditory mimicry report on the Director's Priority tab. You must list the degree of deformation of the pipes using the scale provided in your handbook. In the loss description, do not record the personal information the voice recited. Write, observed significant structural deformation of inventory due to subsurface resonance. The company will write off the steel as a metallurgical failure and send an FBLI containment team to scrap the yard under the cover of a soil remediation project. Fourth observation, the radio shadow of Garden City. Between Midland and Garden City lies a 30-mile stretch of road known as the radio shadow. Usually, it's just a dead zone where cell service drops to zero and the FM dial turns to white noise. But over the last 24 months, the shadow has started reaching out. I was driving a load of high-pressure gate valves, specifically 15,000 pounds per square inches rated Cameron FLS models, each weighing 400 pounds, when the static on my radio turned into a rhythmic thumping like a massive, slow heartbeat. The thumping grew so loud it vibrated the dashboard, and I observed the truck's digital clock begin to run backward, the seconds ticking away into the past. A voice broke through the static, a calm, monotone woman's voice, sounding like a 1950s telephone operator. She began to narrate my current private thoughts as field data logs. The driver is observing the shadows. The driver is experiencing an elevated heart rate of 95 beats per minute. I looked out the window and observed the shadow stretching anomaly. The shadows of the telephone poles weren't falling away from the sun. They were leaning toward the truck, stretching out across the caliche like long, black fingers. They latched onto the tires, creating a physical viscous drag that slowed the truck from 65 miles per hour to 5 miles per hour. The hood of my truck began to ripple like liquid, the steel becoming soft as wax. I utilized the iron grounding technique the director taught me. I grabbed a handful of raw iron filings, part of a magnetic testing kit I was selling, and threw them onto the dashboard. The radio emitted a sharp, agonizing shriek. The shadow snapped back like rubber bands, and the truck's physical integrity restored itself instantly, the engine roaring as the drag vanished. Always carry a bag of raw iron filings or high-grade neodymium magnets in your glove box. The shadow is a localized field that feeds on digital signals and cognitive focus. If the radio begins to narrate your internal state, or the shadows create physical drag on the chassis, ground the dashboard with the iron immediately. Note the duration of the time reversal on the clock. File this as signal interference, cognitive overlay. This is a priority report for the FBLI data crunchers. Mention the duration of the backward clock event and any physical texture changes to the truck's exterior. The main office uses these timestamps to track the expansion of the shadow's radius. If the time loss was more than 5 minutes, the director will swap your truck out for a unit with high iron lead shielding in the door panels. Fifth observation, the Sandwalkers of Orla. 3 months ago, a haboob, one of those massive wall-like dust storms, rolled over Orla. I pulled my rig to the shoulder because visibility dropped to 0. You couldn't see the end of the hood. The wind was howling at 60 miles per hour, but beneath the wind I observed a rhythmic vibration in the chassis. Thump, thump, thump. Something was walking through the storm, moving against the wind with 0 resistance. I wiped the condensation off the glass and observed the silhouettes through the brown haze. They were towering, 15-foot tall, spindly figures, moving with a jerky, stop-motion gait. They looked like oversized herons, but with human-like arms that dangled past their knees. They weren't walking on the ground. They were hovering roughly 6 inches above the sand. One of them stopped right next to my cab. It had no face, only a vertical slit in the center of its head that pulsed with a faint, sickly green light. It pressed a long, multi-jointed finger against my windshield. I observed that the glass didn't crack. Instead, it turned into the consistency of jelly. The finger started to penetrate the cabin. The air around the entry point was so cold, it turned the cabin humidity into instant frost on the steering wheel. I applied a pressurized can of industrial quickset foam, a synthetic polymer used for sealing wellheads, to the entry point. The creature emitted a sound like a jet engine stalling and recoiled. The storm vanished instantly, leaving perfectly clear skies and a starry night, though the windshield remained permanently warped in a swirling, iridescent pattern where the finger had touched it. If the truck starts rocking rhythmically during a dust storm, do not observe the side windows. Keep your eyes on the floorboard and wait for the thumping to pass. If the glass begins to soften or turn to gel, apply any synthetic chemical agent you have. Sealant, brake cleaner, or WD-40. These entities have a documented biological intolerance to man-made polymers. Report this as atmospheric event, biological presence. You must categorize the light signature and the tactile effect on the vehicle. If there is glass damage, do not use a standard repair vendor. Call the director's private line and ask for the specialized Safelite team. They will arrive in an unmarked white van, replace the glass, and take the old pane for analysis. If they offer you an FBLI non-disclosure agreement with a signature bonus, sign it immediately. Look, kid, I know you're fresh out of training and you think this is just a desert and some pipes, but the director didn't send me to you just to talk about sales quotas. The Permian is old and it's waking up. You're taking the south sector. It's a lucrative route, but it's lonely. If you observe something that violates the laws of physics, if the light looks like it's coming from the wrong direction or the shadows move against the wind, don't try to be a hero. Don't take a picture for your personal phone. The FBLI software will just wipe the file anyway. Just keep your eyes on the white line and keep your iron filings on the dash. When you get back to the yard, file your reports using the codes I gave you. The main office isn't just a corporate headquarters. They're the ones keeping the lid on this pressure cooker. We're not just salesmen, we're field observers for an agency that doesn't officially exist. Stay on the asphalt, don't trust the flares, and if you hear me calling your name over the CB radio when you know damn well I'm back in Midland having a steak, do not answer. The director expects a clean ledger by Monday morning, and the FBLI doesn't like excuses. So let's walk through some of the appendixes. You'll have a better understanding. Appendix A, geological anomalies of the Central Basin platform. The director emphasizes that the Central Basin platform is the core of the active zone. This is a subsurface feature roughly 150 miles long and 40 miles wide. It was formed during the Pennsylvanian and Permian periods when the Earth's crust was subjected to massive tectonic forces. We aren't just selling to rigs here, we are monitoring the structural integrity of the Precambrian basement rock. When we sell stabilizers for the drill string, we aren't just helping them drill straighter, we are providing sensors. Every stabilizer sold through the director's office in the last 5 years has been retrofitted with microacoustic monitors that feed directly into the FBLI's network. They are listening for a specific frequency, roughly 2.4 hertz, which indicates a breach in the lithospheric strata. If you receive a call from a rig manager complaining about a vibrating drill string in the Delaware Basin, do not send a technician, send a Code 7 observation team. Observation log supplement, the Orla wellhead hum. Last May, a rig near Orla reported a consistent hum coming from the 13.37 5-inch surface casing. I went out to observe the phenomenon. The hum was so intense it caused the caliche ground to liquefy within a 10-foot radius of the wellhead. I observed that the drilling mud, which should have been a thick brown slurry of bentonite and water, had turned a bright luminescent yellow. The rig manager reported that the drill bit had encountered a pocket of pressurized gas that didn't show up on the seismic surveys. When the gas reached the surface, it didn't ignite. Instead, it crystallized into a fine crystalline structures that resembled frost but were hot to the touch. I took a sample using the lead-lined containers provided by the FBLI and noted that the crystals were vibrating at a frequency that interfered with the rig's telemetry systems. Reporting protocol: subsurface gas crystallization. This is categorized as a Type C lithospheric breach. You must report the color of the crystals and the rate of ground liquefaction. The office will dispatch a team from the Department of Energy's unlisted division to seal the well. Appendix B, technical specifications for Project Caliche inventory. You need to know the gear you're selling because the gear is your armor. The 12.2 5-inch PDC bits. These aren't just diamond tipped. The matrix is infused with a silver copper alloy that acts as a passive electromagnetic shield. If you're on a rig and the electronic displays start flickering in sync with the bit's rotation, the bit has encountered a static pocket, record the RPM, and the depth. The FBLI uses this to map the thin spots in the crust. The high pressure gate valves. These Cameron FLS models have been modified with boron carbide coatings. This isn't for wear resistance, it's for neutron absorption. In areas where the radio shadow is active, standard steel valves tend to become soft or translucent under high pressure. The boron carbide prevents this molecular destabilization. If you observe a valve appearing blurry or out of focus, While under pressure, evacuate the immediate area and file a Code 11 molecular torsion report. The synthetic lubricants. The Stout Casa Blue grease we sell is a high viscosity lithium complex lubricant. It has a specific gravity of 0.92 and a dropping point of 500 degrees Fahrenheit. But more importantly, it contains suspended iron oxide particles. This is the same material you use for your iron grounding technique. If a rig reports that the lubricant is turning black and oily, even when cold, it means the site is experiencing high-frequency electromagnetic drainage. Appendix C, the FBLI encrypted reporting interface. When you log into the portal, you will be prompted for your 12-digit hardware key. This key changes its internal algorithm every 60 seconds. Do not attempt to log in using a standard internet connection. You must use the satellite uplink provided in your truck's console. The interface is divided into several modules. Module 1, Site Observation. Here you will input the coordinates, the company name, and the type of rig. If the rig is unmapped, as in the Mentone incident, check the non-standard asset box. Module 2, Anomalous Data. This is where you record decibel levels, light frequencies, use the color chart in your visor, and any cold spot durations. If you observed a sandwalker or other biological presence, use the biosignature drop-down menu. Categorize them by height and limb count. Module 3, Equipment Status. Record any damage to your truck or the inventory. If a windshield is warped, as in the Orla incident, you must upload a high-resolution 3D scan using the camera on your tablet. This allows the FBLI to determine the puncture depth of the anomaly. Final dispatch, the South Sector route. The South Sector runs from Pecos down to Fort Stockton and over toward the Sanderson line. It is the most active area of the basin right now. You will be traveling through some of the most isolated territory in the United States. There are stretches of road where you won't see another soul for 4 hours. In those stretches, the basin is the loudest. If you observe the stars moving in patterns that don't match the constellations, or if you see lights that appear to be following your truck at a consistent distance of 100 yards, do not speed up. Speeding up causes the truck's alternator to generate a larger electromagnetic field, which makes you a brighter beacon. Maintain a steady 55 miles per hour and activate the iron shield on the dashboard. The director is counting on you. I'm counting on you. We've kept this basin running for a long time, kid. We provide the fuel that runs the world, but we also provide the wall that keeps the things under the dirt where they belong. Stay on the asphalt. Watch the flares. And if you see a man in a tan coverall standing in the middle of a caliche road at midnight, keep your foot on the gas.